Chapter 131 Trading, the Second Watch, Mr. A. It feels more like the code name of the criminal than the name of the mysterious Strong. It can't be compared with the Fool. No, what can be compared with Mr. Fool should be gods or big shots second only to gods. Audrey suddenly became full of superiority. She glanced at Mr. A calmly and whispered to Fowles and Hugh Dear. Does this gentleman have any deeds? Viscount Glint, who is also wearing a hooded robe next to him, is also very curious about this. Hugh Dilcher replied with a serious face. There have been several such things. The extraordinary people of Sequence 8 and even Sequence 7 targeted Mr. A and tried to deal with him, but in the end they all disappeared silently. What a powerful, extraordinary person. Glint repeated the previous introduction with admiration. While speaking, four people entered the house, and the gatekeeper immediately closed the door. A little adapted to the light of the gas lamp, Audrey saw two blackboards standing at the front with lines of words written on them. At this time, holding a cigarette but not lit, Forsey whispered, "That's the needs of the party members. You should understand that many people don't want others to know what they have, so as not to be targeted by greedy people. Therefore, they will anonymously write what they want on the blackboard or what they want to sell, as well as the approximate price and item requirements." Audrey gently, without observing the party members, directly browsed a few items on the left blackboard. You need the eyes of an adult manhal fish. Dust left by ghosts, 165 pounds. Roselle the Great's notes, 3 pages, 20 pounds. Seeing this, Audrey was shocked and excited because she could no longer maintain the state of the audience. These prices are too cheap. She thought with excitement and joy at walking. Her eyes moved and she saw more items. The Cry of a Baby, flowers, 200 pounds. Mummy powder, 10 grams, 5 pounds. Fisherman's mucus, 30 milliliters, 29 pounds. Sequence 8-foot sheriff, potion formula, 450 pounds. Too cheap. Extraordinary materials are not more than 300 pounds. Audrey's eyes lit up as she followed her partner to find a place to sit down. At this moment, Hugh Dear leaned into her ear and asked in a low voice, "What do you want?" Audrey's snorts, mind flashed in an instant Russell the Great's famous declaration. "I want both." She has 2 brothers, so it is not her turn to inherit the title and main property, but as a girl loved by her parents and brothers, she has 300,000 pounds worth of real estate, fields, pastures, minerals, jewelry, stocks, shares, and bonds in her name. This is her share of the property, but before her father Earl Hall died or married herself, she only owned it in name and received the corresponding annuity every year. But even so, she earns 15,000 to 25,000 pounds a year, which ranks high among the female aristocrats in the whole ruined kingdom. Of course, as a nobleman, a lot of necessary expenses are indispensable, especially since she has already taken the annuity income and can no longer find her parents for everything. She controlled herself and replied portentously, "I only took a fancy to Roselle's notes for the time being. I am his admirer. I think the special runes or words he created have mysterious power, but we haven't found a way to combine them correctly." "Audrey, you are getting more and more hypocritical," she added silently in her mind. As soon as her voice fell, a young man in a white shirt and black vest sitting in a nearby chair excitedly chimed in. "Yes, that's it. I finally met someone who shares my views. I am the owner of those 3 pages of notes, and I can sell them to you now." Audrey was at a loss, and then replied with a smile, "Then please allow me to express my gratitude." She took out 2 10-pound notes and handed them to each other, and got 3 pages of Russell the Great's diary. Of course, no one here knew that it was a diary, but only called it a note in general. When I got it, I turned it over, and Audrey confirmed that the words were similar to those she had obtained before. Putting away her diary, she asked Hugh and Fowles in a low voice, "If the note is false, who can I call?" "Mr. A?" "Yes, Mr. A doesn't allow fraud in the party he organizes." "Well, I can also help you arbitrate privately." Hugh Dilcher replied eagerly, "I see." Audrey entered the audience state and began to examine the extraordinary reserves present. Because of the excitement of the young man just now, many people have noticed that they are looking at Audrey and Glint in an obvious or hidden way, but they all lack the eyes that penetrate the hood. Sofas, chairs, and coffee tables are scattered, facing the blackboard together. The material is very general, indicating that Mr. A, the convener, is not noble, and he is very casual in this respect. Well, with his self-confidence, he won't deliberately do similar camouflage. Audrey rolled her eyes and observed calmly. Mr. A looked at all the ladies and ladies present, and his eyes often stayed on those who looked good. He was very lewd. Why did he always look at me? He can see through the hood. Inferred here. Audrey was surprised, as disgusting as eating flies. But soon, she was relieved because she found that Mr. A didn't look at her and other women. This shows that his eyes can't directly see through the cloth. His eyesight is very outstanding, just like looking at me at close range. In this case, the hood has little effect. Audrey quietly watches other people's transactions and grasps part of the situation of everyone present. At this moment, Mr. A's attendants came along and whispered to the For Humanity, "You can write your needs on paper for me, or you can go to the small room and write the items you want to sell on the blackboard during the rest period." Fowles sniffed at the cigarette and looked around warily. "Have you considered the desired formula of Sequence 9? During this time, she fulfilled her promise and told Audrey and Viscount Glint all the sequence information she could learn that Audrey pretended to think about the way. Audience. I want to be an audience. Well, a follow-up to audience, a mind reader. Considering that she will have frequent contact with Fowles and Hugh Dilcher in the future, sooner or later they will find out that she is an extraordinary person and an audience. So, she simply takes this opportunity to make things clear and completely cover up the existence of the Tarot Club. Although it will cost a fortune, it's worth it." Audrey quietly praised herself. At the same time, she found that Hugh Dilcher looked at the blackboard from time to time, eager and depressed. "Sue told me that the sequence 8 corresponding to arbitrator is sheriff. She is looking at the formula worth £450. Well, I can see that she is very eager for the sheriff formula. She has been an arbitrator for more than a year and has been playing the role of arbitration unconsciously. She should have digested the potion. All the above details show that Hugh is short of money." Audrey secretly doing the judgment. The Viscount Glint spoke his own choice. "Pharmacist, I need the formula of Sequence 9, pharmacist, exclamation point." Feeling the eyes of Audrey, Fowles, and Hugh, he explained, "For me, having health and not being afraid of most diseases and injuries is the most important thing. Rational choice, my dream was also a pharmacist." Forth sighed and laughed. She has a lazy and decadent temperament. After the decision, Audrey and others wrote the request on the note, handed it to the attendants, and then watched him go around and ask one by one, and collected many notes. The attendant mixed the notes to the companion in charge of the blackboard and asked him to register the information. Need, audience, and mind reader, potions formula. Price to discuss face-to-face. Every time you write one, the waiter will read it 3 times. If anyone is interested, they will secretly apply for a room and complete the transaction with the help of the waiter. After waiting for a while, Audrey and Glint failed to wait until someone wanted to trade, and they were both disappointed. Just then, another waiter came along, leaned over to Audrey, and gave her a folded note. "Mr. A gave it to you." The waiter lowered his voice. Audrey unfolded the note and looked at it. It read, "Are you interested in other Sequence 9 recipes?" Audrey hooked her mouth contemptuously and wrote in the blank of the note, "I'm only interested in the audience." She folded the note again and returned it to the waiter, watching the other party hand it over to Mr. A. Mr. A took a glance at it, said nothing, and still stared at the party members in silence. But Audrey keenly noticed that the note burned quietly and fell to the ground in ashes. 15 minutes later, Mr. A said, "When you enter the rest stage, you can communicate at will." At this time, the young man who sold Roselle's diary approached Audrey and said excitedly, "I have cracked some special runes of Roselle the Great and tattooed them on my body and gained a good ability. Are you interested?" Audrey suddenly thought that she had asked Mr. Fool if the special words in Roselle's diary had magical powers, and Mr. Fool's answer was that unless any gods were suddenly interested. She looked at the young man in front of her, thought about it, and tentatively asked, "What good abilities have you gained?" The young man replied excitedly, "I am stronger and healthier." Audrey gave him a sympathetic look and said, "I'm sorry, but I believe in my own research." In the following time, she continued to observe the party, but she didn't get much useful information. She only roughly judged that there were members of normal professions such as doctors and lawyers. After another half hour, Audrey and others left here and returned to Viscount Glint's villa until the end of the dance. At 10 o'clock at night, Audrey came home and was about to ask the maid to prepare hot water when she suddenly saw the big dog Susie winking at herself. "It gave me a wink." Audrey's feeling became complicated. Genius remembers the address of this website for 1 second. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 132 Goodbye, Monster. Third, looking for a reason to let the maids leave temporarily, Audrey locked the door and looked back at Susie, a big golden retriever who doesn't count as her pet. "Did you hear? Or what happened?" Susie, the golden retriever dog, squatted there steadily and let out a cry and shook the surrounding air passage. "Yes, I heard the Count discussing things with several members of Parliament in the study. They said that the King and the Prime Minister had reached a consensus to give up the plan to retaliate against the Fuzak Empire on the east coast of Bailang in a short time." "Where is the east coast of Bailang?" Seeing Susie's amazing progress in mastering Ruin, Audrey felt more and more complicated. She said silently for a few seconds, "I'll give you a map tomorrow." "Okay," Susie replied cheerfully. "The King and the Prime Minister think that the most important thing at present is to push forward the previous reform plan and determine the government affairs personnel by public examination. They hope that this matter will be passed in both the upper house and the lower house before October." "Really?" Audrey asked in surprise. This is the first thing that she tries to guide with her own ability after becoming an audience. "If it can become a reality, it will make her full of sense of accomplishment," Susie replied very honestly. "I can't give you a definite answer. It's just what I heard. I can't even understand what they mean. After all, I'm just a dog who just started learning." Audrey's short dull immediately burst into a smile. "Susie, you did a great job. This is a reward for you." She took out a bag from a beautifully decorated cupboard, tore open the seal, and put it in front of Susie. "This is a dog biscuit made by Backlander Caring Pet Company with flour, vegetables, meat, and water. It is Susie's favorite snack." Susie, who was sitting upright, sniffed and raised one paw, as if thinking about how to eat in line with her current status. After a few seconds, he gave up thinking, followed his instinct, flung himself forward, and rushed to the door with the bag of dry food in his mouth. It straightened up, opened the door with one paw, went out all the way, hid in the shadow, and began to enjoy snacks with a snort. On Sunday afternoon, after making up for the lack of sleep at home due to guarding the Cheney's gate, Klein took a trolley bus and arrived at the Dragon Bar again. He had intended to use divination to find Admi's soul, the monster, to explore the reasons for the other party's recent eccentricity, but was interrupted by the sudden loss of control of the penalty taker. So he had to come back today, through the billiard room, into the underground market. This time Klein don't have to look for. He saw Admi's soul is shrinking in the corner, shivering to the dark. Haired and greasy, pale and ugly young man noticed Klein's approach and immediately covered his eyes and pressed against the wall, trying to move to the side door. But Klein has quickly caught up, stuck in front of him, and quietly tapped the left tooth twice. In his second sight, Admi's soul's aura is quite unhealthy, no matter which color. It is a bit bleak, that is to say, although the other party has no serious illness. He is very weak. At the same time, Klein found that the emotional color of the monster revealed obvious fear and tension, and completely lacked the blue color of rational thinking. The surface layer of his spirit body expanded from the deepest part of the etheric body, and the color was completely unified, transparent and colorless, just like it was composed of pure light. This is the special nature of a natural monster. Klein invisible nod, staring at Admi's soul's face, directly said, "What did you see recently, and what happened to you? Why do you want to hide in the corner and tremble, saying that they are all dead, all bodies. At this moment, Admi's soul lowered his head, looked at his toes, and seemed afraid to look directly at the person in front of him. Wearing gray-blue trousers and a shabby linen shirt, he trembled and panicked and replied, "No, I didn't see anything, no. I just had a dream. The dream is full of blood. The ground is full of dead people. Haha, meowed. There is me in the dead and me. I'm dying. I'm dying. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." He laughed and cried, and the content of the answer made Klein feel that his thoughts were confused, rubbed his temples. Klein's heavy voice asked again, "Why are you afraid of me?" Admi's soul lung for a few seconds, suddenly squatted down. Fear to the fullest shouted, Don't. Looking at the eyes, Klein was immediately embarrassed. "I didn't do anything to you. Why do you want to shout like you've been stung?" He laughed twice and saw Admi's soul crouching and trembling, just begging for mercy. There was no other language, so he had to distance himself from each other and pretend to pass by it. "Well, maybe I have to ask Mr. Ask, but he went to the northern part of the Fuzak Empire for holiday last week and won't be able to return until next Thursday and Friday. Before that, report to the captain first." Klein yawned over his mouth and turned and left the underground trading market. After receiving this week's salary, his private money stopped bleeding and returned to 8 pounds and 10 souls, but he can only look at those extraordinary materials. Of course, if he is not afraid of high interest, he can go to the boss Sven to make a loan out of the Dragon Bar. Waiting for the coach at the same time, Klein divergent thinking about the next thing. With a week left, the initial withdrawal of 12 pounds will be paid off, and the money taken home can finally reach 3 pounds a week. Melissa has no excuse to delay hiring handyman. The other 3 pounds will be kept secret for a while, and then some private money will be saved. Also, get the formula of Mind Reader from Dast Guderian as soon as possible or find the corresponding clues, and exchange cash for Miss Justice on the grounds of giving money to his staff. This can be done by means of anonymous bank account. In the process, I will use divination to do some interference, which is very safe and will not expose my secret. On the coach, Klein didn't go directly to Blackthorn Security Company and planned to sit at the Divination Club for 2 hours first. This is to prepare for the next time to pave the way for the digestion of potions. Moreover, for Klein, he is somewhat famous in the industry of divination. In the past, old customers have visited, again, and introduced friends. If it happens, he may even have more than 10 businesses in one afternoon. In this way, even if he basically only goes there twice a week, he can still get an income of about £0.50, which is of great help to the poor fool. It's a pity that the words were too pleasant to listen to, and the image was too perfect to change the divination fee at will. Sitting in the conference room of the club, Klein thought helplessly while drinking Shibo black tea. With his current fame, even if he receives 4 souls at a time, there are still plenty of people to divine. However, as a fortune teller, he can only continue to maintain the price of 8 pence. Although Klein has thoroughly digested the potions now, he is unwilling to take risks against the code of divination he summed up before, which includes obtaining extraordinary benefits without divination. After all, he doesn't know whether this will lead to out of control or other bad things. There is no concept of digestion in the internal data of the Night Watchman, so Klein can't judge from the above whether there is still some risk after thoroughly digesting the potions, and can't act against the corresponding rules. Just as he was thinking about these things, the beautiful receptionist Angelica came in, walked beside him, leaned down and whispered, "Mr. Moridi, someone wants to see you. For divination. Red Agate Room." Okay. Before Klein came, he confirmed whether it was suitable to go to the club today and got a positive answer from divination. He took a half-height silk hat, walked out of the meeting room, and saw the customers waiting at the door of the Red Agate Room. The customer is a girl of 16 or 17 years old, wearing a light blue long skirt with flounces, holding a gauze cap of the same color, having brown hair with natural curls, a cute face with baby fat, and beautiful light blue eyes. Elizabeth. Klein recognized this as her sister's good friend, Elizabeth, who was studying at Ivory College. He once helped each other to choose amulets, and also solved Selena's magic mirror divination with each other's help. Elizabeth also faced a surprise way. "Mr. Moridi, is it really you? When I saw the name, I wondered if it was you. After all, I am a mystery lover. Klein explained helplessly and then added, Don't tell Melissa, well, and Selena. The result of my divination is clearly suitable for coming to the club. How can I meet Elizabeth? He shook his head secretly and turned to open the door of the red agate room. At the same time, he tapped his left tooth twice. After slowly entering the room and sitting in the position of fortune teller, he looked up at Elizabeth. His brow wrinkled at a glance. The girl's aura color is dyed with a layer of dark green with a little light black, signs of being haunted by ghosts. Klein calmly made judgments and directly asked, Do you often have nightmares recently, and some things are repeated in your dreams? Elizabeth, who had just locked the door, was shocked and stood there before she could sit down. It took a long time to answer. Yes, that's what I'm looking for you for. Klein leaned back and said, What dream did you have? When did it start? Since the last 2 days of my holiday in Ram Town. Well, my family has a small manor there. Elizabeth is also a half-occult enthusiast and has long thought clearly about the corresponding situation. In my dreams, I always meet a knight in black full-body armor. He is carrying a huge broadsword, and his face is completely covered by the visor of his helmet. He can only see a pair of flashing red eyes. He's been trying to get close to me, so I am afraid to run away, and the distance is getting closer every time. Klein thought for a moment and asked, 2 or 3 days before having a similar dream, did you come into contact with antiques, ancient ruins, or funerary objects and tombs? Elizabeth recalled for more than 10 seconds and said, I went to the mountain near the town of Ramd in those days, where there was an abandoned castle. This is the beginning of the standard paranormal. Klein's silent vomit asked away. Then, do you have any items left in the castle? Or, what did you take from the castle? Elizabeth wrinkled her beautiful eyebrows, and after a while she asked uncertainly, I was pricked with blood by thorns. Does it count if there is blood left? Klein nodded solemnly, sink a voice to answer. Calculate. Genius remembers the address of this website for 1 second. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 133 The Spell of Burning Money, The Fourth Watch. Here Klein's answer. Elizabeth was a little nervous, unconsciously accelerated the speedway. Can you help me? Divination is what reason? It would be better if we could divine a solution. Divination can at best give the direction of solution, but also full of symbolic meaning, vague and easy to interpret mistakes. Of course, you are lucky. I am not just a simple diviner, but also a mysterious scholar in the true sense. Klein lamented the girl's problem and said solemnly, Since it is related to dreams, I suggest using divination in this respect. Okay. Elizabeth nodded like a chicken eating food. Klein maintained a serious professional style. I need you to sleep here and recreate that dream. Is that okay? No problem, I believe you. Elizabeth pressed her lower lip and answered without hesitation, but she quickly stammered and added, But I can't guarantee that I will definitely have that dream. Just an attempt. Klein soothed each other with a gentle smile. Then he pointed to the couch on the side of the red agate divination room and said, Please. No, I don't need it. I'll sleep here. Elizabeth shook her head gently and put on a gesture of crossing her hands. When I feel tired in public school, I will sleep like this for a while after class. As she spoke, she leaned forward with her arms as a pillow and reached the edge of the table. Okay, you can pretend that I don't exist. Klein smiled and observed each other's aura and emotional color to judge whether the girl fell asleep successfully. Elizabeth closed her eyes and buried her face in her arms, trying to make her breathing even. Klein didn't speak again, leaned back in the chair, and the room suddenly became unusually peaceful. That is to make people calm down and forget the external peace. After a while, after confirming that Elizabeth was asleep, Klein took out a semicircular silver sheet from his pocket, which was covered with Hermes words that were difficult for ordinary people to understand, and various symbolic symbols. Numbers and signs. This is the dream spell that Klein successfully made yesterday morning. At the same time, he also completed 2 sleeping spells and 2 requiring spells. The former is made of rectangular silver sheets, and the latter is triangular, so that he can distinguish them by hand in fierce battles. Crimson. Klein uttered a deep voice and read a word in ancient Hermes. This is the opening mantra he said, because there is a spiritual link in the follow-up, so there is no need to be different from others, as long as it is suitable for memory and short enough. With the mysterious voice echoing, Klein felt that the dream spell in his palm became light and seemed to lose weight for a short time. When the spirit was infused, he immediately put the spell on the table in front of him. The transparent flame rose silently, wrapped the spell, and burned a deep and quiet black. This black quickly diffuses, covering Klein and Elizabeth at once. Klein seized the opportunity, entered a state of meditation, and spiritually saw an illusory and hazy oval ball of light ahead. The ball of light is surrounded by endless dark, which makes it extremely lonely. Klein did not dare to delay. Immediately spread spirituality and touched the ball of light that was not real enough. Silently, the scene around him began to flicker upside down, but soon it was fixed as a yellow-brown plain, on which many horses and humans were killed, and there were blood and weapons everywhere. Elizabeth, wearing a long skirt with leg sleeves and a hat with tulle hanging down, is looking around blankly. She once captured Klein's figure, and a surprised smile appeared on her face. Mr. Meridi, we meet again. Selena and I went to the divination club for divination before, and I suspected that Klein Meridi on the roster was you. Later, I went there several times, but because I usually have classes, my time with you is always staggered. Wait until the summer vacation become free, but I was my father and mother to Ram Town for a holiday. You must be able to help me, right? Listening to the girls rambling, Klein was a little shocked for a short time. It turned out that Elizabeth had long suspected that I was working part-time in the divination club, and she had come here several times specially. She didn't show anything unusual just now. Well, the surprise is real, just masking the real idea. Sure enough, everyone is honest in their dreams, except Mr. I, a fool. During his thoughts, Elizabeth's dream changed. A tall knight, who was more than 1.9 meters tall, dragged a broadsword that could touch the ground and walked over step by step. The knight was wearing black full-body armor, and there was a slight metal collision during the action. Two flaming red lights emerged from the gap in his visor, staring at Klein and Elizabeth intensely. A soul-hating idea. Can't reach the level of evil spirits. Klein, who is already in a spiritual state, doesn't need to open second sight at this time. In the division of the internal data of the Night Watchman, the remaining resentment and unwillingness are the weakest and easiest things to deal with, followed by shadows and resentful souls, and evil spirits belong to very difficult soul monsters. The most horrible evil spirits are said to be no weaker than the high-order strong ones. Thought of here, Klein stepped forward, stood in front of Elizabeth, and then stepped on his right foot, making the dream instantly fragmented. Numerous fireflies are shining, and Klein's spirituality has returned to his body, allowing his eyes to see the dimly lit red agate divination room, the table with various divination props, and the dream spell, with only a few embers left after burning. Looking at this scene, thinking that the spells in the field of the goddess of the night are made of pure silver, Klein cannot but feel distressed. This thing is burning money. Even if I don't consider my labor cost, I will get an average of 6 to 8 souls for all kinds of materials. Well, when you think about the extraordinary people of Eternal Sun Church, you feel a lot of balance. After all, they burn gold. The corresponding metal in the solar field is gold. At this time, Elizabeth gently, slowly woke up and sat up straight again. She glanced at Klein some dodge way. Mr. Meridi, did you get the result of divination? Yes. Klein nodded quite seriously. In less than a week, the nightmare will disappear on its own. I'll report to the captain and ask him to send someone to Ram Town to deal with it in time. Klein added what he didn't say in his mind. Really?
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Meridi. Elizabeth suddenly became excited, and then suddenly frowned. What's the matter? Klein asked with concern. Nothing, just thinking that I have to go home. She slowly took out the 1 soul paper money she had prepared, put it on the table, and then took a hat and said goodbye to Klein with reserve. After leaving the red agate divination room, she walked lightly to the stairs outside the gate, and when no one saw it, She shook her arms and cried in a low voice. Good hemp, good hemp. Blackthorn Security Company. Dunn rubbed his forehead, gray eyes staring at the opposite Kleinway. You suddenly returned. Did you encounter any extraordinary events? Hey, Captain. Why do you sound so disgusted? Klein cleared his throat and answered without hesitation. Yes. What event? Dunn Smith rubbed his forehead again. Klein clearly replied, 2 things. One is that when I went to the underground market to buy spell materials, I found the monster, Admi's soul, curled up in the corner, trembling with fear. Here, he frantically hinted that the cost of materials needed to be reimbursed. As for the detective fee for finding Dast Guderian, because it involves the Red Chimney, he can't mention it, and deeply regrets that he didn't trust it to 2 detective agencies at that time. Dunn didn't seem to recognize Klein's hidden meaning, gently nods. What happened to Admi's soul? Klein silently spit out a sigh, described in detail. Admi's soul had a dream, dreaming of blood all over the ground and dead people all over the ground, including himself, so he was very scared. Dunn, as if thinking slowly, said, As a diviner, what do you think this symbolizes? A disaster. A disaster with a wide range, but there is no other information, and Admi's soul's dreams may not be symbolic. Klein pondered the answer. I will submit it to the temple to see what advice they will give. Dunn shook his head and laughed at himself. This is not what I am good at. Klein had no other ideas, and turned to Elizabeth's entanglement with the idea of hatred. Ram Town, that lady is a disciple of the goddess? Dunn asked thoughtfully. Yes. Klein made a positive answer. That's no problem. You and I will go to Ram Town now and try to have dinner there. Well, bring Fry. His ability is very useful in events related to dead bodies and ghosts. Dunn rubbed his temples and tried to think about whether he had forgotten anything. If Elizabeth doesn't believe in the goddess of the night, it must be handed over to the scapegoat or the mechanical heart, according to her specific beliefs. If her beliefs are not even in the 3 major churches, it belongs to the mechanical heart, in charge of the suburbs. Klein didn't speak again, quietly waiting for a moment. Finally heard Dunn added. Also, we are 3 people, and we can apply to use the seal 3-0782. 3-0782. Klein thought hard for a while before remembering that the corresponding seal was the emblem of the mutated sun. The extraordinary effect of this emblem seems to last for a long time. Its function is to continuously purify the dead bodies and ghosts within 15 meters around it. The disadvantage is that it will also purify the souls of normal people at the same time. Research data show that if normal people stay within 15 meters of it for 1 hour, they will become idiots who only know praising the sun. The limit of extraordinary people is 6 hours. As for ghosts and dead bodies, they will break up in less than a minute. The captain actually remembers the code name of the seal. I went there, feeling that my memory is not as good as his. Klein suddenly zhung and almost found a noodle to hang himself. At this time, Dunn Smith leaned back and asked with dark eyes, Did you go to the divination club again? Do you feel any change in these 2 days? Genius remembers the address of this website for 1 second. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 134. More than a minute. The 5th watch. Captain, this is the question I want you to ask. Klein nodded seriously. I feel better. I even think I can pass the examination of the temple now. This is an experience and confidence that can't be described in words. Thinking that the answer just now might be a little vague, he couldn't help adding, maybe the name of the potions is really the key. When I am a fortune teller in strict accordance with the code of diviners that I have summed up, everything becomes beautiful and easy. Well, I have been able to open second sight in a more subtle way. Dunn's eyebrows were slightly wrinkled, his eyes were closed, and he said to himself as if he were thinking, the name of the potion. After more than 10 seconds, he looked at Kleinway again. Do you need to go back and tell your family? Sunday is the 2nd day after you were on duty at Cheney's Gate. You should have had a rest. Considering that Elizabeth is a good friend of her sister and she promised that the problem would be solved within a week, Klein replied without embarrassment, There is no need to waste time like this. Just let the carriage go around Daffodil Street after departure. Okay, You go to Fry, and I'll fill out the application form and get the seal 3-0782. Dunn pointed to the lounge across the street. Fry is a corpse collector, not as energetic as a sleepless. If he is free, he often takes a nap. Fill in the application form by yourself, sign it by yourself, and collect it by yourself. Captain, there are loopholes in our management system. Klein lamented 2 sentences, didn't speak, took his hat, withdrew from Dunn's office, and knocked on the door diagonally opposite. A knocked voice repeated 3 times. Fry opened the door, hard to hide a confused look at Kleinway. What can I do for you? Mean? I'm going to explore a mausoleum with Mr. Ask. Well, the mausoleum may have another symbolic meaning. Klein crossed his hands and pressed his chin to interpret the content of dream divination just now combined with the results of previous pendulum method. He has decided not to report his own speculation to the captain. Only by the way, a townsman took out a portrait of Baron Ramd, which is said to be the first generation. This is quite similar to Aski, a history teacher at Hoy University. Klein is not sure if Dunn will hear about it from other places, so he must explain it, of course. Without Ask's story, I don't know his strange dreams, and Dunn, who is not familiar with the other party, is hard to associate with anything. Klein even suspects that the captain doesn't remember the appearance of Ask's teacher. Thought of here, he restrained his thoughts and planned to leave the fog, but at this time, he found that the dark red star, which had been quiet for a long time, once again contracted and expanded weakly. Klein extended his spirituality with interest and saw the boy who spoke giant language before again, and saw him kneeling in front of a pure crystal ball. The boy is still wearing black tights different from the styles of countries in the northern continent. His appearance is vague and distorted, with only a faint brown hair. He knelt there, pleading in an unusually painful tone, Klein to listen to the song. By finally getting started in the giant language, barely understand what the other party is saying. Great God, please look back at this abandoned place. Great God, please let us dark people get rid of the curse of fate. I am willing to dedicate my life to you and please you with my blood. Abandoned place. Dark people. Great gods. Klein mused on these key words and suddenly remembered a place mentioned by Upside Down. The land abandoned by God. Russell's diary also mentioned it. He also sent a fleet to look for it, but there was no gain. Klein's eyes narrowed slightly, and he didn't know if his guess was correct. His fingers knocked on the edge of the bronze long table, and after 3 times, he made a decision. Stretched out his right hand and touched the illusory crimson star. The crimson burst out immediately, and the light flowed like water. P.S. There will be another shift in a few minutes. Chapter 137, The City of Silver. The second Moor, City of Silver. Morgue hauled. Dyrek stood in front of the steps, his eyes aglow, and he looked at his parents lying in 2 coffins. On the slate in front of him was a simple silver straight sword, which shook slightly in the thunder that shook the house from time to time. The Bergs in the coffin haven't really died. They try to keep their eyes open, and sometimes they gasp weakly and violently, but in some people's eyes, their life brilliance is irrepressibly dim. Dyrek, do it. An old man in a black robe with a hard cane looked at the boy with a twisted face and said with a heavy voice, No, no, no. Dyrek, with brown hair, shook his head continuously, and every time he said a word, he took a step back. In the end, he even screamed like a tear at his heart and a split-lunged knock. The old man pestled the cane way. Do you want the whole city to die for your parents? You should know very well that we are a dark people abandoned by God, and we can only live in this cursed place. All the dead will become horrible evil spirits, and no matter what method is used, it is difficult to reverse them, except that people with the same blood personally end their lives.
Why? Why?
Dyrek shook his head blankly and desperately and asked, Why are the people of the Silver City doomed to kill their father and mother as soon as they are born? The old man closed his eyes, as if remembering what he had experienced in the past. This is our destiny, this is our curse, and this is God's will. Pull out your sword, Dyrek. It's a respect for your parents. After that, when you calm down, you can try to be a blood warrior. Berg in the coffin wanted to speak, but after a few ups and downs in his chest, he could only make a sound of lotus. Direk struggled to step back to the side of the silver straight sword and held out his right hand, trembling. The cold touch came into his brain, reminding him of the blood ice brought back by his father when he went out hunting. Just a piece the size of a palm can cool the room for several days. His eyes flashed a stern father who taught fencing, a kind father who patted the dust on his back, a gentle mother who sewed clothes, a brave mother who stood in front of him when facing a mutant monster, and a picture of a family gathered together, sharing food with flickering candlelight. Blair. His throat let out a loud, depressed voice, his right hand jerked hard and pulled up the straight sword. Push, 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 with his head buried. He rushed forward, raised his straight sword and plunged heavily. Ah! A scream of pain. Blood spilled out, splashed in Direc's face, splashed in his eyes. His sight was bright red. He pulled out his straight sword and plunged into the coffin next to him. The sharp metal penetrated the body, and Direk loosened his hand and staggered to his feet. He didn't go to see the situation in the two coffins, and stumbled out of the morgue hall like being chased by evil spirits. His hands were tightly held, his teeth were biting hard, and the red blood on his face was washed out. Ah! The old man who was watching all this sighed. On the streets of the Silver City, there are stone pillars on which lanterns are hung, and there are unburned candles in the lanterns. There is no sun, no moon, no stars in the sky here, only constant darkness and lightning that tears everything by the lightning. The people of Silver City travel on dark roads, and the hours when the lightning subsides every day are considered as the legendary real night. At this time, candles are needed to light up the city, dispel the darkness, and guard against monsters. Direk walked through the street with his eyes straight and didn't think about his destination at all, but he walked and found himself back at home. Taking out the key, unlocking the padlock, and pushing the door, he saw everything familiar, but he didn't hear his mother's concern, nor did he encounter his father's scolding for running around. The room was empty and deserted. Direk clenched his teeth again, quickly returned to his room, and rummaged through the crystal ball that his father said was a city-state that had been destroyed for a long time for offering sacrifices to the gods. He knelt down, facing the crystal ball, and prayed hopelessly and painfully. Great God, please look back at this abandoned place. Great God, please let us dark people get rid of the curse of fate. I am willing to dedicate my life to you and please you with my blood. Over and over again, just when he was completely desperate and wanted to stand up, he saw a crimson light burst out in the pure crystal ball. This light, like running water, flooded Direk in an instant. When he initially regained consciousness, he found himself standing in a towering palace propped up by a huge stone pillar. In front of him was an old and mottled bronze long table, and on the opposite side of the long table sat a figure shrouded in thick gray fog. In addition, the surroundings are empty, ethereal and empty, and the bottom is filled with invisible gray fog and unreal crimson spots. Direk's heart is lit with a flame called hope, and he looks blankly and doubtfully at the figure sitting in the front seat. You are a god? After asking, Hihor Ran remembered a sentence in the general education book of Silver City and hurriedly bowed his head. That sentence is, "Don't look directly at God." Klein leaned back, crossed his hands, and replied in giant language leisurely and easily. I'm not a god, I'm just a fool interested in long history. Having already tapped the left tooth twice, he found that the surface of Spirit's body, deep in the ether body of the teenager, was mottled in color and not unified. This shows that the other party is not extraordinary, fool. Direk chewing the word, silent for a long time before difficult to say. Whether you are a god or a fool, my prayers will not change. I hope everyone in the Silver City will get rid of the curse of fate, hope that the sun described in those books will appear in the sky, and if possible, I also hope that my parents can be resurrected. Hey, I'm not a wishing machine. Klein, loosen your hands and smile way. Why should I help you? Direk was stuck. Good half-day just way. I will dedicate my soul, and I will please you with my blood. I have no interest in mortal blood and soul. Klein smiled and shook his head, watching the mood of the teenager in front turn into despair a little bit. Before each other speak again, he carefree said, But I can give you a chance. I am a fool who likes the exchange of equal value. You can get what you want from me and others like you with everything you can. Note that it must be worth quite a lot. This can make you stronger. Maybe one day, you can rely on yourself to get rid of the curse of Silver City and make the sky reappear according to the description of the other party just now. He is sure that Silver City is in the so-called abandoned land. Of course, he can't be 100% sure for the time being. After all, according to religious classics, the state of the sky without the sun still exists in the first period and the chaotic era. After all, no one knows whether there are any strange places that the countries in the northern continent don't know except the abandoned land. Dyrek listened quietly, bowed his head in silence, and it took a while to answer. I want to be the sun, and I want to get its initial sequence of potions from you. Sequence, potions, sun. The sequence approach mastered by the Eternal Sun Church seems to be really in the same world. The word sequence was born after the birth of the first blasphemous slate, that is, the end of the dark era of the second period. In other words, if Bayin City is really in the abandoned land, it shows that this area was separated from the north and south continents at least at the end of the second period. Could this have something to do with the disaster of the tertiary? Legend has it that the goddess of the night, the Mother Earth, and the god of war were born, and together with the Lord of the Storm, the Eternal Sun, and the gods of knowledge and wisdom, they blessed the disasters that mankind had weathered. Klein got a lot of information from each other's words, however. He listened very hard and organized the language even harder, because the giant language is not so skilled. Fortunately, the ancient Saxon language is directly derived from the giant language, and in this respect, Klein is barely an expert. So, he has made rapid progress in mastering the giant language, and now he does not make a fool of oneself. Klein maintained a posture unchanged. Tone flatly replied, "This transaction can be put in the next 2 days. You'd better not go out, and try not to stay in the same room with other people." He doesn't know what is the time unit of Silver City, and he doesn't know how this relates to conversion of time in the Kingdom of Wen in Peking University. He has to express it in general terms as tomorrow, and then tell the other party after the tarot party, and then at this point in time just this. As for the unit Tion, because it is in the giant language, Klein thinks that even if Silver City doesn't use it to count, the other party should understand what it means to. Okay, at your command. Dyrek bowed their heads and answered. Without objection, Klein secretly relieved, finger-tapping table edge way. Before sending you back, let's finish the equivalent exchange just now. I gave you a powerful opportunity and you have to pay the corresponding price. I said that I am a fool who loves a long history. The exchange I asked for is the history of the Silver City, what you know. Dyrek wanted to think. A deep voice replied, I will describe it truthfully. The City of Silver has existed since the Creator, the all-knowing and all-powerful God, abandoned this land. No, before that it existed, but it was also called the Country of Silver. Update has been sent for a monthly ticket. Thank you. The mysterious first booking has set a record, and my personal best first booking result has almost doubled. Moreover, we actually stayed in the top 3 days of the monthly ticket list. Don't say much, just now. 2 chapters have been updated, and there will be 1 chapter at 12:30 noon and 7 o'clock in the evening tomorrow. That is, the usual update time. Shout loudly again for subscription for monthly ticket. I want to stay in the top 3 in the overall list. Chapter 138, Giant Way. A third more for monthly ticket. The creator of everything, the all-knowing and all-powerful God. Klein leans back, keeps a profound posture, and repeats the key words in the words of Silver City teenagers in his mind. He is no stranger to the creator. The Book of the Storm, Revelation of the Night, and the creator in folk legends have similar titles, and the true creator, believed by secret organizations such as Aurora Society, has also been given the same description. But Klein, the all-knowing and all-powerful God, heard for the first time in this world that neither the goddess of the night nor the Lord of the Storm, the god of steam and machinery, claimed to be omnipotent. If the Silver City is really in the land abandoned by God, and the land abandoned by God really belongs to this world, the all-knowing and all-powerful God, may be the honorific title of those creatures to the Creator in ancient times. Klein looked thoughtfully at the opposite teenager and looked at his sad and painful emotional color. Dyrek felt a fool's gaze and involuntarily lowered his head a little. He recalled the contents of books and legends told by his parents and said slowly and sadly, "When the sun disappeared from the sky, when the clouds were torn out of the gap, when lightning and thunder became the masters, monsters hidden in the depths of darkness suddenly appeared. They were so horrible and unimaginable that cities in the country of silver were destroyed one after another. The dark age of mankind came. The remnants of the strong gathered in the Silver City, relying on the united strength and two magical items, finally resisted the attack of the dark things and gradually eliminated the area within a day's journey of ordinary human beings and established a city-state that sheltered the last fire of human civilization." Standard textbook statement. Klein couldn't help but comment, "From the bottom of my heart." The description of the other party always makes him feel that the area where Silver City is located is not in the same world as the northern mainland. Maybe this is the particularity of the land abandoned by God? He thought without any emotional exposure. Dyrek's slow sigh of relief continued. In the first few decades, plants couldn't grow, and there was a serious shortage of food in Bayin City. We had to hunt dark monsters with flesh and some mutated animals to satisfy our hunger. The population began to decline rapidly and irresistibly. Fortunately, we found black-faced grasslater, which can survive tenaciously in this environment and become our reliable and stable food source. It is considered to be the last favor left by the great gods, which made Bayin City persist from generation to generation and persisted for 2,582 years in the Dark Age. This is the time recorded by the chief in the past dynasties. Other people in Bayin City regard it as day when there is more lightning, night when the lightning subsides, and one alternate day. Because it is often chaotic, we can't grasp the exact number of days. What a strange place. Klein is glad that he didn't take tomorrow for granted just now, but vaguely described it as the next 2 days. Dyrek briefly finished a few memorable things in the history of Silver City and then said, "After the population has recovered to a certain extent, the number of extraordinary people has also increased." The 6-member parliamentary group began to organize elite teams to explore the darkness. Recently, to this day, we have explored the original land and nearby city-states and are moving towards a deeper and more terrible darkness. On the edge of there, we found many cities with strange styles but suffered destruction. We suspect that this is a shelter established by the remaining other human beings. Unfortunately, they are still in the end. The dark things he described should refer to all kinds of monsters hidden in the depths of darkness that normal people can hardly imagine. Klein nodded invisibly. The country of silver was once under the rule of the giant Wang Ting, so the extraordinary chain we have mastered is the Giant Way, and we also call it the Blood Warrior Way. When we killed some monsters and explored those destroyed cities, we obtained some other series of potions, but the chain was incomplete and more or less incomplete. Dyrek began to introduce the current situation of Silver City. Hearing this, Klein suddenly refreshed. Although his posture has not changed, he is obviously more focused, and I like to know about cereal potions best. Giant Wang Ting. Silver City and the northern mainland share the same history? The history of the second period. Well, killing monsters will lose the formula? Is this a game? No, there is another possibility, that is, those monsters used to be human beings and extraordinary people. Klein suddenly felt a little heavy. Dyrek, see a fool didn't say. Bite teeth. Consider again way. The names of potions in the way of giant are in sequence 9, Extraordinary Warrior, sequence 8, Gladiator, sequence 7, Grandmaster at Arms, sequence 6, Dawn Knight, sequence 5, Guardian, and sequence 4, Devil Hunter. And the names of higher sequences are only known to the elders of the 6-member council. Sequence 4, Devil Hunter. This is the name of the high sequence potions formula? This is the first time I know something like this. Klein is gratified that he has finally mastered the title of a high-order strongman, but he suspects that this is an ancient name, which is different from the current description of the North China, just like the difference between Storm Priest and Navigator. Well, Extraordinary Warrior, Gladiator, Grandmaster at Arms. It's a little familiar, By the way, the complete sequence mastered by the God of War Church is very similar to this. Sequence 9 Warrior, Sequence 8 Fighter, Sequence 7 Grandmaster at Arms. Because of the problem of confidentiality, Klein only knows the names of the first 3 formulas of the complete sequence of the God of War Church, but this does not prevent him from equating the two, judging from the core meaning. It is basically the same. The complete sequence mastered by the God of War Church turned out to be the so-called Giant Wei. This god, who is said to have appeared in the Tertiary, that is, the era of catastrophe, inherited the legacy of the giant Wang Ting? Or is he an ancient giant himself? Klein kept his eyes cool while doing analysis and judgment. Dirac said again. After the initial difficulties, Baiyin City has been ruled by a 6-member parliamentary group, in which the highest-ranking elder is honored as the chief, while the other 5 are regardless of height. The current 6-member ceremonial group consists of 3 hunters, 2 potential guardians, and a shepherd. Shit, there are 3 high-order strong people in the City of Silver. A demigod and a demigod. It's been hundreds of times that a single one can extinguish the tarot. Klein heard a guilty conscience, and he hasn't tried to pull people under the nose of the high-sequence strong, however, considering that the teenager opposite is just an ordinary person, not even sequence 9, he will definitely not be concerned by the high-ranking people for a long time, and he put down his heart again. Shepherd. Is this from another sequence? The incomplete sequences sound very similar to the style of Aurora Club. In the letter written to Mr. Z by the member of Aurora Club, whose name I forgot, Klein has been mentioning the Lamb of the Lord. Klein maintained a leisurely attitude and seemed to ask casually, Shepherd? Yes, this is the serial route that we found from the cities destroyed by the Dark Things, only to the Shepherd in the sequence 5, but the Elder Loya is very powerful, very strange and terrible. It is said that she once fought against the evil spirits with a high level of sequence and was not injured. Therefore, after the seat of the 6-member council became vacant, she made an exception and became an elder. Dirac replied with some fear. Klein wanted to think, smile, and ask away. What is the pre-sequence of Shepherd? I feel familiar with this. You know, there will always be differences between historical names and modern names. In the City of Silver, the name of the potions has never changed. Dirac instinctively retorted, then looked down and said, Sequence 9-foot secret prayer. Sure enough. Klein is satisfied that his guess has been confirmed. This is the serial 9 name of Aurora Club. Sequence 8 Whispered, Sequence 7 Hidden Friar, Sequence 6 Reverend Rose, and Sequence 5 Shepherd. Dirac told the whole story of what he knew. Whispered, listener, almost, Hey, I know more than the information of the Night Watchman's Tingen branch. Klein motioned Dirac to continue in a good mood. Dirac and roughly describes the status quo of the City of Silver, finally could not help but mention, We are under the curse of fate. No matter ordinary people or extraordinary people, they will become evil spirits after death. But the evil spirits turned into by extraordinary people are even weirder, scarier, and more difficult to deal with. In history, this curse has almost destroyed the Silver City several times. The only solution is to end the life of the deceased by people of the same blood. It's a cruel thing. I hope you can be strong and find a way to get rid of the curse of the people of Baiyin City. Klein, an empty-handed fool, can only give each other free chicken soup. So, I want to be the sun, to be the sun. We didn't encounter any curse when the sun shone on the earth. Dirac whispered painfully. Klein nodded slightly. You will have a chance. Remember, I will drag you here again at any time in the next 2 days. You should try to avoid staying with others. Okay. Dirac sank a voice to answer. Before that, you need to determine your code name. Klein smiled and pointed to the surface of the bronze long table where there was a deck of tarot cards. He believed that the other party must have never been exposed to such things, so he briefly introduced. Choose a card as your code name, except fools, righteous, and upside-down people. Dirac forward 2 steps, flipped through the tarot cards, almost without hesitation, said, The sun. I choose the sun. Remember your choice. It will accompany you all your life. Klein said in a familiar tone with a stick of God. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and broke off contact with great self-control. then watched the crimson light retract and watched the opposite teenager turn into a virtual shadow and dissipate little by little. P.S. Send it to the third watch and ask for a monthly ticket. Chapter 139 Study on 3-0782. The fourth is to ask for a monthly ticket. When the crimson dissipated, Derek Berg saw his bedroom again and saw the pure crystal ball click. The crystal ball broke from the inside out, or turned into pieces of illusory light flying into the surrounding void, or fell to the ground, and everything was crystal clear. Derek looked at this scene in silence, and found the blood on his face in the reflection of the bronze mirror next to him. He found that the back of the right palm had a crimson light, which condensed out a circle radiating the lines of the roots. This strange symbol quickly got into the back of his hand and disappeared completely. Derek dazed for more than a dozen times when lightning lit up the sky, and finally woke up from the general confusion of dreams. He looked at the crystal ball fragments on the ground, then at the back of his right hand, and his eyes gradually became deep, out of the bedroom and back to the living room. Derek opened the door and looked up at the sky above the Silver City. A flash of lightning flashed across, and everything was covered with yin-hui. Then, in the rolling thunder, the world turned to darkness, darkness without any light, and darkness that made people desperate. Derek's hands became fists, but there was no joy in his eyes, and there was still sadness and pain. But he is no longer at a loss, call, and fool to a member, no, and developed a member. Klein shook his head, laughing at the tarot's current strength. As the leader's fool, there is only sequence 9, and he has just adjusted the soothsayer, potion, and the Silver City, where there is no hope in the mouth of the sun, has at least 3 high-grade strong people in sequence 4. If I pave the way again, I can explain the situation to the captain and make a special application. Once I become a clown, I will at least no longer be an assistant. Klein did not stay, extended spirituality, wrapped himself, and fell sharply through the fog and the gibberish. He returned to his room and lifted the spiritual wall. Then, Klein picked up the key, slid out the door, looked at the 2 rooms that Dunn had booked first, and confirmed that the captain and Fry had not come back. Then went to the first floor and pushed the key to the boss. The boss glanced at the wall clock on the side of the eye and gave him a thumbs-up sign. Well done. Hey, what do you think I open a hourly room for? Klein opened his mouth to explain, but finally decided to let the other side continue to misunderstand. He felt wrong to comfort himself. Well, then he won't talk to the captain about me opening another room. After going out for a circle in a pretentious way again, Klein made a quick divination, returned to the hotel according to the results, and went straight to the second floor. As expected, he saw Dunn and Fry communicating the investigation just now in one of the rooms. It can be confirmed that the soul of resentment only appeared in the last 2 or 3 months. Dunn looked at Klein, who opened the door, nodded, and gave the conclusion. Klein immediately chimed in. My investigation also confirmed this. He described the key points of the previous question and finally said, "Oh, a townsman named Greer also claimed that he had a portrait of the first Baron rammed at home, saying that it was an antique oil painting more than 1,000 years ago. You didn't spend money on it, did you?" Dunn, gray eyes flashing, dazed, directly asked Captain, "Do you think I'm such a gullible fool?" Klein, quick way, "No, I haven't. Although I'm only a student in the history department, I've also attended some classes in the archaeology department, and I have some experience in this field. I can initially identify the true and false." "Oh, the man in that oil painting is very similar to my history teacher, Mr. Askey." He told the most crucial thing with a casual indifference. Dunn really didn't pay attention to this point, rubbed his eyebrows and said, "This small town with ancient ruins is always full of all kinds of antiques. I just met the townsman who sold Baron Ram's silver wine glasses. Someone sold me the Rammed family badge, saying it was dug out of the castle." Fry chimed in. Klein subconsciously asked, "You didn't buy it, did you?" Fry looked at him, he looked at Fry, and the 2 sides never continued this topic. The next task is that you or Fry, whoever covered, take the seal 3-0782 to a place where there is no one outside the town. Otherwise, most of the hotel people will become idiots who only know how to praise the sun. You first, or Fry? Dunn's gray eyes looked at Klein in a quiet way. Me. Klein raised his hand a little and smiled. It's not too late now. I can have a good sleep when I get back. Is it every 2 hours? Yes, Fry, you go with Klein and confirm the handover location. Dunn looked sideways at Fry, the body receiver. Halfway through the separate investigation, he had found an opportunity to give Fry the seal 3-0782. Otherwise, he would have been purified and began to praise the sun, and Fry could only support for another 3 hours because of insufficient recovery time. Okay. Fry took the variation of the sun emblem from the inside of the thin black windbreaker and handed it to Klein. Klein took it with great curiosity and interest, only feeling that the metal touch of the badge was warm and moist, and there was hot water flowing inside. The warm light is like ripples, spreading out layer by layer, bringing pure flavor. At the same time, Klein only feels that this dark golden emblem with the symbol of the sun is constantly washing away his spirituality, removing impurities and leaving purity. Sure enough, all seals have a very pit side, and if you are not careful, you will die, or it will be more tragic than death. He muttered to himself and put the seal 3-0782 on the inside of the clothes. After confirming the state of the revolver, charm, and cane, he went out of the room, left the hotel, and went straight to the outside of Ram Town with Fry's sparse and cold forest. 2 people around a circle confirm that there is no living within dozens of meters around. If anyone comes near, drive him away. Fry reminded me coldly, I'll take your place in 2 hours. No problem. Klein smiled and answered. Watching Fry walk into the town, he found the half-height stone he had just seen, picked the leaves next to him, and wiped the surface. Then, he touched the top of the stone with his finger and observed his fingers in the crimson moonlight. Confirmed, Klein lifted the thin black trench coat and sat down. Don't stand if you can sit. He added silently in his heart, calm for a few minutes. He looked at the dark and quiet, deep and terrible grove, couldn't help but stand up, took out different metal vials from the dark bags inside the cloves, and sprinkled a circle of herbal powder and essential oil pure dew around the stone. Then, Klein recited a mantra in Hermes, and with the help of materials, he sprayed spirituality and sealed his own area. The purpose of this simple ceremony is twofold. One is not to rely on the diviner's premonition of danger and to guard against dead bodies and ghosts attacking him. The other is to dispel mosquitoes, 100 times better than toilet water. Klein sat down again with satisfaction. After a few minutes of boring sitting, he curiously took off the seal 3-0782 and carefully examined this mutated sun emblem that I don't know if I can divine its origin and special source. Suddenly, Klein flashed an interesting idea, so he took out the paper and absorbent pen he carried with him and wrote the divination sentence. I have mutated the source of the sun emblem. As a qualified and real diviner, Klein has made sufficient preparations for divination anytime and anywhere. After 7 times of meditation, he closed his eyes and entered a state of meditation, which was used as a springboard to start his own dream. In the dream, he only saw pure light, and besides, there was no other gain. Well, the church must have tried other diviners before, and there is no source in the data, which means that it has not achieved effective results, just like I did. Just now. Klein sighed and thought, I don't know what will happen if the interference is eliminated. As soon as the idea emerged, it immediately occupied his brain and made his curiosity reach its peak. After hesitating for more than 10 minutes, he saw that the night was quiet, no one was around, and he was in the shelter of the grove, which would not be seen by passers-by. So he stood up, took 4 steps backwards in the spiritual wall, and entered the fog again. In the majestic palace, Klein sat at the top of the ancient long table, showing a tan parchment, a black round-bellied pen, and the emblem of the sun in front of him. It feels quite real. He picked up the seal 3-0782 and waited, only feeling that its shape and touch are the same as the outside world. Directly rely on my feelings? Klein whisper, to write down the divination statement before, I have mutated the source of the sun emblem. After 7 times of meditation, he took the parchment and the seal, 3-0782, leaned back and entered the dream. In the gray fantasy world, Klein saw a drop of golden, warm and bright liquid. It floats on the altar, in front of which stands a man in a white classical robe. The man had only his back and lost all the breath of life. He slowly fell down and fell to the altar. At this time, the sun emblem he was holding touched the golden liquid, which quickly penetrated into it. When Klein saw this, his dream faded quickly, and he woke up. It turned out that this holy emblem has been effective and can't be controlled because of the fusion of the golden liquid. Well, at least it has been discovered for decades, and its purification ability has never declined. I don't know what the golden liquid is, some kind of high-grade extraordinary material. Klein played with the existing seal 3-0782 in his hand, lost in deep thought. After thinking about it for a few minutes, he tried to separate the golden liquid from the existing variation sun emblem, according to the feelings in his dream. When he thought of it, Klein was shocked and startled to see the badge that was no longer so warm and pure, and looked at the drop of golden liquid floating quietly and had a higher evaluation of the mysterious space above the fog. It's amazing enough, even if it's just an illusion that comes out of the separation, the source of this golden liquid. He wrote a new divination sentence with great excitement. P.S. Fourth watch, please ask for a monthly ticket. Well, there will continue to be overtime tomorrow. The third watch. The first watch is at 0:23 in the morning. The second watch is at 12:30 at noon, and the third watch is at 7 o'clock in the evening. Please ask for a monthly ticket. Chapter 140 Death Expert. The first more commutation ticket. The source of this golden liquid. After reciting the divination sentence 7 times, Klein took the parchment and the virtual golden liquid and leaned back in the chair. He doesn't know whether it is possible to carry out divination by relying on this purely sensory separation device, so he can only make bold assumptions and carefully verify. In a few seconds, Klein's eyes turned dark, from brown to black, and entered a state of meditation. His eyelids drooped, and he saw an illusory and hazy dream. In that gray and fragmented world, a golden and dazzling sun suddenly jumped out. A deep hum came through countless vanity, and the pure and clear light instantly ignited everything, and the golden and hot flames swept out crazily. Boom! Klein, once out of the dream, trembling and overturned to the side. The body has become a torch, is burning at this moment. His thoughts are completely frantic, and no normal thoughts emerged. Boom! The mysterious space above the fog shook violently. The majestic palace collapsed, inch by inch, and the old and mottled bronze long table was smashed out of the hole and smashed into several sections. This terrible change lasted only 3 seconds, and then silence returned to the fog. As if nothing had happened, Klein's golden flame gradually went out, and he rolled and screamed on the surface, until his thinking ability initially returned. He propped up the armrest of the high-backed chair and stood up with difficulty, frightened and at a loss about what had just happened. Before that, he never thought that only one divination would bring such consequences. He took a few breaths, looked up and looked around, and found that the majestic palaces and ancient long tables, which had never been abnormal, had been damaged, which was an unprecedented injury to above the fog. What the hell is going on? Does my divination point to an incredible existence? Klein recovered a little, let the body's sunburned fall off, and wondered about things. If it weren't for the mysterious space above the fog, I'm afraid there would be no ash left. Is that golden liquid God's blood? Did I just see the eternal sun, or his powerful angel? No, it's a sun. I feel more like the former. I'll go. Am I looking straight at the gods? Klein, more think, more dying, feel almost completely confessed. It's really ignorant. If you don't die, you won't die. You can't use everything for divination in the future. Who knows what you will see? Once again, I really don't know if this mysterious space can help me stop the most deadly injury, then I'll be dead. Well, if you continue to try with golden liquid, it is definitely not enough. Just now, the existence of the suspected eternal fear sun was also influenced by the mystery, strangeness, and suddenness of divination above the gray fog, and you didn't have time to make more reactions. If he had prepared, I'm afraid this mysterious space could not stop. Thought of here, Klein's figure returned to normal, no longer blackened, but compared with before, it was a bit bleak and unreal. He raised his hand and rubbed his temples, giving the idea of restoring the palace and the long table. The palace, like the giant's residence, and the long table made of bronze were instantly restored, and everything went back to the way it was before. Klein sat down, leaned back, and laughed at himself. This is not entirely a bad thing. At least I have figured out where the limit of this mysterious space is. With a definite goal, an angel who is close to the gods can fully incite the power above the fog. Well, I must add another content to my code of diviners. Do not divine things that may involve high-ranking creatures at will. Well, don't drive second sight around. If you look straight at something you shouldn't look straight at, you may be over the game on the spot. There is no mysterious space in the outside world to resist most bad influences for me. After a few seconds, Klein's expression suddenly became strange, because his mind was echoing with some knowledge. Yes, knowledge. Just now, in the short moment of contact with the existence of the suspected eternal sun, Klein has been in a state of divination, so he instinctively divined some things and knowledge from the other person. He quickly used the technique of dream divination to recall and sort out the harvest that was not in the original purpose, picked up the black round, bellied pen that appeared, and wrote one by one. 1. Don't look directly at God.
2.
Pure white angel.
3.
The skill of making the solar inflammation spell. This is a relatively advanced spell in the field of the sun, and its effect can last for 1 year before it decays. You can pray to the eternal sun without holding a ceremony, but use the seal 3-0782 instead to steal power from this mutated sun emblem. 4. Very hostile to the Lord of the Storm, the god of knowledge and wisdom. 5. The formula of the Singer Potion. The main material, a crystal sunflower or the tail feather of an adult flint bird or the tail feather of an arsonist bird, a siren stone or a singing sunflower. The auxiliary material, a midsummer grass, 5 drops of July wine juice, and a dark leaf of the elf. 6. Formula of Prayer for Light Potion. Main material, a piece of brilliant stone or powder of blazing white soul, or blood of mirror hedgehog or heart of molten troll. Auxiliary material, a sunflower in Phnom Penh, and 3 drops of aconite juice. 7. The formula of the Priest of Light Potion. The main material is missing, and the auxiliary materials are 5 grams of rosemary, 7 drops of citrus juice, and rock water. 8. For the potions of No Dark in Sequence 4, the main material can be the golden divine blood extracted from the variation of the sacred emblem of the sun, and in addition, the 3 tail feathers of the adult sunbird can be used instead of the sacred brilliant stone, and the auxiliary materials are lacking. After writing the above 8 articles, Klein couldn't help knocking on the edge of the bronze long table. This harvest is much more than he imagined for him. It is enough to survive. The reckless divination just now. Who knows that there is this extra survival reward from the internal information of the Night Watchman? He knew that the sequential approach mastered by the Church of Eternal Sun was called Sun, and Sequence 9 was just a eulogist, a profession that brought courage and strength to himself and his companions by singing, and brought piety and obedience. Their slogan was, "Let's praise the sun." The corresponding Sequence 8 is Prayer for Light, which can perform some spells and rituals in the solar field and restrain dead bodies and ghosts very much. The Sequence 7 is called Sun God Officer, which has greatly improved the skills of spells and sacrifices in this field. That is to say, I have obtained the complete potions of Sequence 9 and Sequence 8 of the Sun pathway. Well, unlike the previous ones, this potions also lists the names of substitutes or materials in different periods. It's really a form